All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Legend of the Galactic Heroes, episode 39. All right, before we get too far into this, sorry guys, I have a really bad sore throat right now, so that's why my face and my voice sounds like that.
Yeah.
My face sounds a certain way. Yes, exactly. Yep. Yeah.
But we're shaping up to get into some pretty serious stuff here, as if it wasn't already serious enough, because, we go into war. And
it's going to be quite the spectacle, because we're getting everyone involved. Literally, we might be getting maybe even Fejon involved. It depends on how things are actually going to play out, right? Because they're trying to cover their backs against Reinhardt as he, swells in power and throws forth his hand in that very dictatorial fashion. Yang seems to be somewhat aware of the way things could be going, though.
Right.
So it's up to him to basically have prepared some countermeasures off screen. I hope he's bringing other people into this, because if not,
You're worried?
I'm worried that he'll put too much burden on himself in order to perform properly.
I can see that too.
Because the kind of things that he would be doing that would make him not want to tell other people, the list on those things is short, and they're not good.
Right.
In my opinion.
Yep. Same.
Or they're so ineffective because they're at the tactical level,
right,
that it's not even worth mentioning. So, okay.
Yep. Here we are.
Yeah. Y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion.
Our boys left.
We're saying goodbye to Julian. Saying goodbye to Julian.
Yep. Yeah. And everybody had to say goodbye.
It was really nice how they made it kind of an inversion of the Fellowship of the Ring, like kind of items being granted.
Oh, yeah.
Like some of them are plot kind of things that, are probably going to be like, oh, remember that's there. And then other ones are going to be like more personal effects, to kind of draw a connection to the people that, he cares about, so that when stuff potentially either happens to them or Julian, there's an extra bit of, memory and stuff attached to that. But the episode starts off quite differently.
It does.
Than being focused around Julian. It's focused around two characters of the
Rebelo and Rui.
Yeah, of the Alliance Council. The people that are looking at this from a little bit more of a pragmatic perspective and seeing that there is a possibility that Yang could end up becoming an enemy if TrueKnit keeps pushing him in the way that he does.
Right. But then hopefully he won't, unless he gets pushed, right? So if they can maybe keep that from happening, then everything should be good.
Yeah, but what I liked about what Rui is saying was that he would never actually intentionally seek it out. Right. He would never go after this by his own accord. But he could feel like he's forced into it and thus choose it. If backed into a literal corner, which they mentioned in this episode, a type of not necessarily corner, but encirclement that could happen.
Sure.
Not because of TrueKnit, though.
No, just because Reinhardt has that many ships.
Right.
Just lays siege, and then while that's happening, send an actual, another army through the Fejon corridor.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing of where you're like, oh, we're boned. Yeah.
Right, it's that whole 6-to-1 thing,
right?
Like that just sort of lets you
I'll
do
just send
things like that.
3 over to you,
and 3 the other way.
The other way.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
And your 1 is trapped over there.
Right.
Yep.
And there's a lot of things set up as to why the Alliance will have no chance to defend against a full fleet of Reinhardt's forces.
Oh yeah.
There is nothing on their side as of right now, other than Yang and the Isolon Fortress, that they view as a big enough asset to even be considered in the...
Yeah.
We have nothing to worry about.
The one thing that I would say is a benefit is that they'll have mercats over there. So if
he doesn't have a fleet,
he doesn't have a fleet.
They won't give him a fleet.
Right. The ships are there though. Like, but
we already know what they'll do when they come to a panic. They'll station them around Heineken. Is it Heineken or Heineken? Heineken's the beer. Yeah. Sorry guys, I'm sick with a sore throat right now, so it's even addling my brain. But if that's the case, then we're really needing Julian to actually be in Fejon, because I'm really curious to see
early warning system or something.
If he ends up being there before the Empire ends up moving, I could totally see them doing a thing of where I don't know, he gets there eventually, but then by the time he's on his way to there, the Empire's already stationed themselves there, and he just gets picked up and nabbed immediately.
And there's a part of me that wants something like that to happen, so that then we can have the conversations of Julian with the Empire people, because you just know that this boy has enough, sense and a good head on his shoulders, and the fact that he was close to Yang and everything, they would want to question him and be like, all right, let's understand this Yang a bit better, So
do you think he would even give up the information that he is associated with Yang? No one in the Empire should know who he is. He's not anyone important in that regard.
That's a fair point. He might not. Yeah.
So in some ways, he actually is better off pretending to be nobody in that case.
Right.
And he could then languish in an Imperial prison. So I don't know. I think it's a little bit testy dicey in that regard. The big thing that they kind of brought up a lot this episode, which is something that they brought up in previous episodes, is the idea of the corrupt democracy or the just dictatorship. Yeah. And this is something that is very much kind of parallel with the discussion that Revelo and Rui end up having, which is if Yang became someone that was a threat to the Alliance, what could we actually do to stop him?
Would we want to?
Well, sure, but that's not. I don't think that's something they're really bringing up there. But it's just something that we would think about as the audience, because we have the meta narrative in mind of, could Yang even do any of this properly? Because he can't even wake up on time. Think about it. Think about it.
That doesn't exactly inspire confidence. And
no. Take all this corrupt government and stuff of what you have in the Alliance. It's still a government. It's not a good one. But this is one of the things that is really tricky when it comes to any kind of supreme executive power to one person kind of thing. That person better be damn near flawless.
Yep.
And let's just say Yang has some flawless strategies and tactics.
But in other
areas, he's just a wise kind of, lounger,
Well, let me put it this way. Without Julian, hell no. In a lot of ways, this feels similar to the whole situation with Kier Heist.
Yep.
Where Kier Heist, now, Julian isn't dead, right? I'm sure Julian will do just fine in Fejon.
Julian's going to be the antithesis to even Kier Heist by the fact that he'll survive the entire show.
Yep.
He has to.
Right.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean he has to be with Yang.
That's true.
Especially with with how this thing of Julian being transferred, right? I was okay, Julian's gonna go somewhere else. That's gonna be rough, right? But I kind of expected it to be something where it would just happen quickly, and then it would be we'd realize later, oh man, he hasn't been near Yang in a while. This has long-reaching consequences and stuff. But here it was the show did such a wonderful job of showing all the characters that cared about Julian being oh, you're leaving, okay, well, here's the patch because you're basically a Rosenritter, here's a proper knife, here's a key from when I was in college, all this stuff, right? It's it's being set up this is this is a very big deal. So how much of a big deal is it going to be on just the personal scale versus the plot scale, and how much and in what way? And I don't know, but this is a change. This is quite the change.
It's
a big change.
And the show gave us a lot of build up for it, but the biggest way they built it up was the idea that Yang sat down with him and had a good conversation.
Yep.
But their conversation was one that was setting up a lot of things plot wise. Because one of the things that the episode primed us for was the idea that Yang might end up getting pushed into a corner. And that would be, in some ways, all it would take. Rather than retiring or ending up, leaving, they literally have dictator on the table, which is something that we, kind of as the audience, go, yeah, but that's still not Yang. But then we see him, having this conversation here where he's like, yeah, I don't necessarily have any direct loyalty to the Alliance as a nation itself. It's just a tool upon which we can, hopefully strike out a better life than, than we would without it. But, maybe it's no longer necessary.
I love that line because
it's really tough to discuss that when you're in the military.
Yep. Oh yeah, especially when you're in the military. But like the idea that the Alliance was started for a reason, and the Alliance isn't exactly at its best right now. And the Empire kind of is at its best. And that whole conversation of the A, B, and C, now that was talking about Fejan, the Alliance, and the Empire and things like that. And the earlier parts of, siding with one and then the other and one and then the other doesn't really work in Yang's case. But the idea that sometimes it's necessary to then cannibalize the one thing in order to join with the really big thing. Like, that's... it's parallel. It's like the conversation was totally not talking about Yang, going dictator or anything, but it's of a similar thought process, right? The idea that sometimes that is what's needed. So,
yeah. And I think what's really special about Yang teaching by just kind of having this conversation here, Julian, is that as, Julian grows, as he ends up, seeing more of the galaxy and all this place and stuff like that, you can see the passing on of the torch. You can see the history being written here of, the great Admiral Yang, the legend of the Galactic, a legend of a galactic hero even, teaching, his protege, over the course of this mad war, to seek out a bright future in some ways. And, Julian's the hope of that in a lot of ways. So when they have these moments, you realize, we're looking at history being formed here. Because Yang doesn't necessarily realize, I guess, I don't think he realizes how much Julian respects him. Like, he knows that he'll sit there and listen to him talk, not just because he's the Admiral, but... because he really does respect his viewpoint on things.
Yeah, he looks up to him.
So he really looks up to him. And when Shunkov mentions things about, you can't just say the right things, you have to, have your actions line up, because that's what children look at with regards to their parents, is their actions. Yang's actions are ones that are quite, how do I say this? Limited, actually, because he ends up being in positions of power where he resents his power and ends up, not really wanting to be forced into this situation. He's reluctant to the umpteenth degree. So if he starts burdening Julian with like all this extra stuff of like, hey, you gotta learn this, you gotta learn this, I gotta learn this. But his next action that he takes is one where he's, maybe pushed into a corner and he does something where Julian's not there to have the perspective to know exactly what's going on inside his head. I'll just say it right now. There's very real possibility these two could end up on opposite sides of the conflict.
Really?
Oh yeah. Like, do you not see like what this could be? This is the kind of thing of where you don't know where they are. You don't know necessarily what they're doing. You don't know how they're doing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they set up even also Yang's the alcohol stuff even more as being even bigger of a problem.
Well, yeah, that was with some of the things that Yang was saying. I could see the moments where Julian was kind of like, whoa, I didn't expect him to say that. And then he sort of went more back into the receptive mode of okay, yeah, what you're saying is really good.
Yeah, I don't think Julian was really resistant to a lot of the ideas he was saying. I think it was more that Julian just kept asking questions like, oh, so you're saying this? Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. But it was the fact that this is all good head knowledge. This is all really good words and stuff like that. And Shunkov is basically saying, but what he's really going to learn from is your actions.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And if he's not there to be able to get that insight on why Yang does things with his actions, if Yang does anything even remotely close to the I will seize power kind of angle, the whole I need to protect the alliance from itself kind of thing. Julian won't be around to understand why he did it.
Yep, that is a great point.
This is the kind of thing of why he's saying, hey, if I would do it, this is why I would do it. Is that, maybe I'd be actually freeing people from, corruption or something like that. Yeah,
maybe we'd be better off with the Empire right now.
Maybe, who knows? So it's a really fun conversation because I feel like it's laden with story landmines of like, oh yeah, we're not stepping on this for a while, but when we do, you'll be able to look back at this and be like, here's where it started, or here's where they, told you.
Right.
Like, did you pay attention?
One of my favorite things about this whole conversation between Yang and Julian is the idea that when Yang is, even though he doesn't have like a lot of direct, like power, even within the alliance, right? He still gets his orders from higher up and everything. But he's the galactic hero, right? Mm-hmm. He goes and he sits down with Julian because he's worried about, how Julian feels about this thing that's been passed down from higher up, right?
Yeah, he didn't have to do that. That was just him being a good guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Because when I think about like Yang versus Reinhard, even though they're on similar paths but done in different ways, because they're different kinds of people. Whereas Reinhard is kind of the golden god, Yang is just a dude. Right.
Yeah.
And that's both a blessing and a curse, right? Yeah. Because he has moments like this where he connects with Julian and he just talks to him just like regular people, and all these amazing things can come of it, right?
Right.
But then there's also the things of like, oh yeah, will you be able to get up on time? Oh yeah, eat your vegetables. Don't drink as much. What? No, drink. It's fine. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
Like, and given that, Yang is in a situation with a lot of pressure, right? And we've seen how he deals with that pressure. It hasn't caused real issues up till now, but the seeds are there and it could start. And the fact that like even like things like him waking up on time, and like with the invasion that the Alliance did, the person in command being asleep was a legit problem at one point, like little things like that, where even though Yang is not that type of person,
right,
he's not perfect, right? And it might not be something as grandiose and extreme as Reinhardt's probable eventual fall from grace, right? Because that's going to be like a falling star, right?
Right. Yeah, Reinhardt will go out in a blaze of fire and light.
Yep.
But Yang, if Yang falls, it will be slow.
Exactly.
It'll be the
slow death.
Well, it'll just be the slow decay of human life, basically.
Right.
And that, age or bitterness.
Sure.
Like the things I think that they've set up for Yang, specifically if Yang was to ever fall, is bitterness, laziness, and a devaluing of life. And this is something that I think is the kind of the crux of it, is that he has a lot of tendencies that would push him into I would say a relatively healthy form of nihilism with regards to the way he approaches just stuff in general.
Right.
But
practical.
Practical, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I could see him, if he was in a bad mental state, going into the dangerous areas of nihilism, where he starts to devalue his self so little, so much that he turns to really self-destructive tendencies. But that's more of a he's gone over like multiple victories and it still doesn't lead him in a good direction. You need to have moments where you would have hope dashed like multiple times, which requires you to then have at least surmounted or surpassed a bunch of obstacles to get you into that positive state to where the actual fall would hurt. But I feel like if anything, this is again a thing of where it's like this is so far potentially out in the future because Yang is doing so well just in terms of balancing everything. But if they very quickly start to show that just like immediately when Julian leaves, that we start to see the the cracks already forming, then they're definitely pushing at it to come a little bit sooner than I would have expected.
Because Yang's not driven. Like Reinhardt has the ambition and everything, right? And that can propel him forward, even if it makes him burn out. Right?
Sure. Which he will.
He will. Like that's just going to happen.
Yeah, he's pushing too hard alone.
Right. Yep. Whereas in Yang's case, because he doesn't have some big goal, right? It's just try and mitigate damage as much as possible.
Yeah, he seeks equilibrium.
Right.
Yeah.
That's also something where, it could turn into just decay and and entropy and like
or if they go the other angle where it's not the decay thing, it's just that he can't find equilibrium. What actions will he take in order to maintain equilibrium? Will he need to do things that he's not proud of? So we'll just have to see on that angle. I really liked how every character had their little bit that they were giving to Julian.
I know, right? That was great.
But what I really, really liked about it is how they called back to the philosophies and the thoughts and the beliefs and the mindsets of all these other adults that we haven't really had that much time with in a while. Like, I loved Murai being like, hey,
yeah, that was great.
You probably got a lot of talks from all these other people there. You realize that's special, right? Treasure that, because that's going to help you a lot later. Like, a lot of these were like Chekhov's like plot foreshadowing devices, things like big in terms of potential, but little drops of things where it's like, hey,
the kind of thing where if he comes back and he finds their grave, something that he'll leave on it, like
right. But I'm meaning also the kind of things of where like Julian's going to be literally in a video game level, and he's gonna pull out
the knife. Yeah.
He's going to pull out the remembrance thing of like, oh wait, people like me. I can use that.
That's like, what was making me think that he would end up talking with some people higher up in the Empire. Because,
right. Well, I think that's more of like an end game kind of thing in general.
Yeah.
It's really just a question of, depending on how things go with Reinhardt's invasion, Fejon being where he'll send at least some or all of his fleet. We don't even know if he will attack Isolon necessarily. I would say that it would make sense that he does.
Yeah, if nothing else, just to keep Yang occupied there.
Right, but I could see if Yang's already sending a message to Bukok and stuff, a literal snail mail, letter thing. What I could see being a thing is where he's like, hey,
it's coming.
Well, it's coming, but I'm going to abandon Iserlon and leave a skeleton crew that can hold off a fleet. But I'm going to be mobile.
Like that.
I'm going to intercept the Imperial fleet when they don't see it coming. And I'm going to need your support in this.
Like, that would be insane.
Because that's the next level tactic, is where he basically says, oh, the Isolon is our biggest asset? Really? Oh, okay, cool. You guys think that? Awesome. You're going to waste half your fleet maybe coming to the Isolon corridor? Awesome. You guys, you're in charge. You guys have this there. Like, he turns it over to Shunkov.
I mean,
and he's like, make it hell. Like, make their time here hell. But and he's like, all right, fine, just leave some good food, and the boys and I will.
Oh, this will be a frat house.
He's like, I'll cock block every Imperial thing from penetrating my lady. There we go.
But the thing is that Yang doesn't have any actual executive military power.
That's why Bukok's important,
right?
So what he could do is basically, to also thwart Imperial spies, is say something like, hey, we're having a fleet that's maneuvering, specifically to go and test some things. And that's all it is. You don't have to have it said that it's Yang or anything like that. But then if it's actually Yang, that's fine. I don't think anyone in Yang's fleet necessarily is going to be an immediate tattle, on him. But I mean, who knows? It could be.
But if that did end up happening, you just know that would be one of those things where Trinit would be like, "Oh, you broke the chain of command. You're getting a bit too big for your britches." Yeah, right. Exactly. You abandoned your post.
Yeah. And then there you go. That's Yang being pushed into a corner.
Yeah.
Okay, but here we are.
Mm-hmm.
This was the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
We got to have a nice, wholesome, little endearing episode. We didn't even touch on a lot of the characters who really do care about Julian and stuff, but I loved the conversation with what was his name? The guy the guy who was trying to kill Yang. I always forget his name. Oh, Bagdash,
yeah.
Right.
I loved that conversation where Julian, he's like, hey, you're going there and you're probably gonna, be getting some information and things like that. Just here's some tips for you, right? You can just think of them as vectors, right? Based on what people want of what, that'll affect it in that way. You subtract that, you can figure out what's really going on.
Right, and get back to the person that originally instigated the thing.
Right, just by asking who stands to gain the most.
Well, that was even before that. He was basically saying you can use the vectors and the directionality of it, subtract that, and you can get to the source of the vector.
Oh.
Meaning who started the flow of the thing. Then he's all like, and if that doesn't work, you can always use the tried and true principle of
who benefits.
Yeah, who benefits the most from a crime, which doesn't work all the time, which is why he was saying the other thing first.
Sure.
Because
if you can figure out who started the information,
Right. But that being a mathematical formula that he, as an intelligence officer, is like, no, this is a good principle. It works more often than the thing that I'm about to mention that works quite a lot.
Which is
the person who benefits the most,
gotcha.
is usually the one that, because that's something that doesn't work if there's framing involved. Because you could set it up to where the framed person is someone that would benefit from it more, but because then they get moved out from it, you have to kind of look at the top 3 people who benefit the most from it and investigate all of them.
Yeah, right. Who benefits the most from me realizing that this person benefits the most?
There's levels of indirection that can come into that I just hope get.
And if Julian ends up figuring out what's happening before it happens, and then he has to get the word out, that would be so awesome.
That'd be so tense,
so too. Awesome.
And because who does he tell first? Think about it. I don't know how this technology system works, but I would assume he doesn't have immediate, galactic communication access to Yang from anywhere.
Yeah, probably not.
So what that means is that maybe, and this is something that would suck, but they set up actually how he would do that already. Konev said, oh, I have a cousin in Fejan.
Sure. Yeah.
Who is, Yeah. Well, not necessarily someone that's going to be helping.
Right.
And then if he's like, hey, I need actually to help send a communique, to the, Alliance military. And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. What is it? I can't tell you. It's top secret. And it's like, oh, okay. And then, then follows him and it's like, well, what's going on? It's like, oh, he knows. Yeah. And then it might not be the Imperials that, the Empire that gets Julian. It might be Fejan.
Well, and even if he does get the word out, I doubt it would be secure. Or, so maybe he gets the message out and then he gets nabbed. Or
maybe it gives it to Yang and Yang's like, well, it's happening, execute plan, and
66
exactly. And now we're stuck with this. We just have to wait for them to show up. I don't know, man. Boy. It's just when you get into the subterfuge and the manipulation of the pieces on the playing board here, I feel like Yang has a small step ahead on Reinhardt because Reinhardt has to take care of half a galaxy at this point.
Yeah,
but it's just, does Yang have enough pieces to actually have it matter? I feel like it's like Risk, where Yang gets to roll 3d6 instead of defending with 2d6.
Okay.
And he wins ties. But, freaking Reinhardt has, 6 times the number.
Right.
So it's like,
what happens?
Who cares after a certain point, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then he can just attack in different areas. It's not like you have to go,
once he gets
choke point here.
Once he gets through Fejon, assuming that happens, because even if they find out that he's going to go through Fejon, the only thing that they could really change is that Yang could leave Iserlon and help defend, the alliance, but he can't be in multiple places at once. After you go through Fejon, it opens up. You can go anywhere,
Remember the line from Watchmen?
I'll look down
and ask, save me.
And I'll look down and say, no. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He could also choose that, where it's like, remember what Junkov recommended? Maybe we don't, go in immediately.
Yep. And then at the same time, what's Trunit's whole thing with this? But then there's the and then with Fejon, the whole maybe there's religious reasons behind it. And it's
that's true.
Okay,
that's true. They brought that up. I liked that, because I feel like that's what's going on in Fejon right now.
Okay.
Is that there's actually like more than 2 parties involved other than, Kesserling and Rubinsky.
Right, because there's also the Church of Terra.
Well, there's the Church of Terra, but it comes down to a thing of if Kesserling and, Rubinsky ended up having a fallout, which side does the Church of Terra support?
Yeah,
I would say in some ways they would support primarily Rubinsky, because he's the one currently in power,
right?
And he's the one that we've actually seen
interacting
with them, even though Rubinsky very much doesn't like that.
Right, so maybe they'd be like, "Oh yeah, this young upstart, he'll serve as a good replacement or something." I don't
know. We'll see, but that's something that I feel like is it's too simple. The religion angle is there.
But tease that apart? What does that mean?
But that's what Julian's going to have to figure out, is that he's going to realize, wait, the religion angle is there, but it's subversive. It's a parasite. It's something that's here that's kind of attached itself to Fejon, but it's not Fejon. Fejon is cold and numbers and buying up
something else.
Buying up real estate and businesses and stuff.
It is free real estate.
I mean, for Reinhardt, it might be.
That's true.
He's like, hey, here's a fleet of 120,000 ships. What you gonna do? And they're just gonna be like, here you go.
That number is stupid.
Yeah, that could happen. Though.
Who knows if it's that number or not?
How much did the Alliance feel? Do you remember the Alliance?
Oh yeah, it was like
200,000. I think it was 200,000.
Yeah, that's right. It was 200,000.
So
yeah,
he can probably be like, I'll just send 120,000 ships casually to Iserlon, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
And then he's like, and I'll send 180,000 through Fejon. Fejon just watches the first 60,000. It's like, yeah, we could take those. But the problem is that there's 2 more groups of them. Them there. So,
oh my god.
Maybe we made a mistake. That would actually be a really funny flex move from Reinhardt, to where he just kind of casually just sends 20,000 ships, and he's just like, I'll just leave them here.
Yeah.
And they're like, you said you were going to go. We will. But these are supply ships.
Yeah, no,
we don't need all of them.
These are just securing the supply routes, Yeah.
Right, exactly. And that would just make sense. But it'd be the kind of thing of where Fejon's like, isn't our entire fleet like 20,000 ships? Yes, it is.
Yes,
it is.
And it's all scattered? Yes, it is. Yeah.
Well, I actually would say that's probably what makes them strong. Their fleet is probably not scattered at all.
Oh, because they're probably a small area. So
it's probably a thing of where it's like they have, them at key like 3 or 4 positions, and it's like they're all there. They don't get sorted out, so the Empire doesn't freak out, and they don't get sorted out because the Alliance doesn't freak out. So I mean,
oh boy,
there's a lot moving on, so
everything's about to change.
Y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access. You can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and you can also talk with Jacob about the sci-fi novel that he wrote.
That's right. Wrote a sci-fi novel called Battle Lines. It's on Amazon if you're interested. The link is in the description down below.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.